Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the iHeart Radio Network, the #1 network in the universe, according to Big C and his good old boys. And also Big C Sports has been rated the #1 sports show in the universe. We do it every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Today is February the 1st, also known as Black History Month. So thank you everybody for paying homage to Black History Month. I also want to say thank you for listening to us from Latin America. So bienvenidos to you also across the pond and in Paris, France, and London, England. And of course, Canada. We love you so much, Canada. But there's no one I love more, Big C, than the land of the free and the home of the brave. How's it going for you on Super Bowl 51 weekend, Big C? How's it going, sir?
Pitch.
Yeah.
And, everybody's excited. People are showing up in Houston. Odds makers are, still toiling with moving the point spread. The alcohol is flowing.
Yeah.
I bought a little moonshine that I'm going to take into town with me, and spread some waffles. Getting all excited. Basketball is going on. We got controversy in basketball, trying to take away from the hype of football. But, it's a marvelous time. The NBA is at a fever pitch. You got the Super Bowl. You got the NHL talking. We got to get a hockey team down here where it's hot.
Yeah, I understand. I'm telling you, talking about moving teams, you have the Oakland Raiders. Man, you know how sometimes you can take your old girlfriend for granted because you think she's going to be there no matter what you do? Well, you have Mark Davis doing that with the Raider fans. I guess the guy down in Las Vegas doesn't want to put up the money. Yeah, he decided he didn't want to put up the money, and now he's making Mark Davis feel the way Mark Davis is making the Raiders in the black hole, the faithful feel, Big Z. He's saying, we don't really need you. So it's funny how Mark Davis is doing that to his loyal fan base, and then Allison's pimping him out about going to Las Vegas. We're not going to give you the money you want. How's that make you feel, Big Z, if someone does that to you?
It's amazing, and you and I have elaborated on that a lot during our shows.
Yeah.
About how these teams turn their back on these loyal fans over the decades who have worked hard, go to work, try to take their kids to a game, trying to take their families to a game, to go out and watch a bunch of selfish millionaire owners decide what they want to do against them. And this is in all sports, Charlton, not just the Raiders, but for Mark Davis to try to be as bold and as brash as his dad, there was one Maverick in that. That was Al. Mark Davis was just a pimple on his butt.
Yeah.
Let's be realistic about this. Sheldon Addison, went out there and courted Mark Davis, and we're going to do all this for you.
Yeah.
But in the end, we've all talked about that. There's no base in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
It's a destination place. It's not where people live. It's where people go to have fun and a few transits stay for a while. But to bring an NFL team in, Charlton, you have to look at all the troubles that we're about. You got all these young men with excessive cash and a lot of downtime. That's going to create problems with the league.
Now, wait a minute, Big C. How can having young millionaire men who are full of testosterone and whatever else it takes to play the game, how can putting them in a city where prostitution and everything else goes, Big C, and it's 24 hours a day, how could that be a problem for the NFL, Big C?
Well, you saw that with Donald Trump, okay?
Okay.
They may take Donald Trump lead, so I try to drag him, but and that's going to create huge problems for the NFL, logistically and law-wise, Charlton. So the NFL, I think, had a lot to say to Mr. Allison about, hey, this is not what we prefer. You can invest in a stadium anywhere, and now the NFL is really in a big bind, Charlton, because you think about this stadium proposal in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
That was supposed to be partly funded by potentially getting the Olympics in 2024.
Yeah.
That is now being jeopardized with this ban, and I don't think American public is sitting out applauding Mr. Trump about this ban, saying he's doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And I would ask the American public, because we all deal with it as American citizens, think about the last time you went to the doctor, the dentist, or even the emergency room in the hospital. What ethnicity of people did you see working?
Yeah.
That's what you have to understand. When Donald talked about foreigners are taking away American jobs, Americans are not qualified to work in these medical fields where these people have come from these foreign countries.
Highly educated.
A better way of life, Charles, to help live the American dream. And now he's going to shortcut people in this. There's also, Charlton, when you think about it, about 1 million students in America, college students,
Yeah.
that have come from these foreign countries, and they all pay between $40,000 and $60,000 a year to attend these prestigious American universities.
Yeah, Stanford, Harvard, Princeton.
What's going to happen to the economic base of these universities now, Charlton, now that this cash flow does not come into these universities? These are dumbly thought out processes that the new president has put in and implemented against America, and he's saying it's against foreign countries. No,
Yeah.
Charlton, these acts are against America.
Yeah. No, I agree, Big C. I also want to say this segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive it, tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. Now, the one thing that could be a plus about the Raiders moving to Las Vegas, Big C, a lot of those guys drive Escalades. They get up over the hill with, I think, about 300 to 400 horsepower, Big C. It wouldn't be a problem for the guys that didn't want to fly it, Big C. Your thoughts?
But also, it's kind of hot down there, Charlton. You got to go on the air conditioner all the time. And I think you got to be able to crack the windows to get the smell out of the back of the car periodically. You're not going to be able to do that today. You might melt your arm on that window chill and stuff.
That's funny.
I think that this is the best thing for the NFL, not having the Raiders go into the NFL. You know, the thing about these teams, Charlton, these heritage teams,
Yeah.
even when the coach left Indianapolis, yes, they're still a coach, but they're still not the coach, Charlton.
Yeah.
The Baltimore coach were synonymous. When you think about some of the games that they played in NFL lore, the greatest game of all time that was called with the 56 championship game with the Giants and the Colts.
Yeah.
You know, the Colts played in Super Bowl III and Super Bowl IV. They were the first team to go back-to-back in Super Bowls, Charlton. Many
Yeah.
people don't realize that. They don't remember that.
Well, how do you know this? ESPN didn't start till 1983. How do you know what happened back in the day, Big C?
Oh, Charlton, you know, some of us guess well.
Okay, did you Google it, Big C?
They lost in that infamous game that Joe Namath that he predicted that the Jets and the AFC would win.
Oh, yeah.
And it wasn't a dominant game by the Jets, but they won the game. And just as, you know, the game was that year, the following year against the Cowboys. And the Cowboys was the first team in the NFL to play two quarterbacks in the Super Bowl. When they started Craig Morton,
Yeah.
and then they would ride the Starback.
Well, that's good knowledge.
And they lost that game.
That's
so,
good.
You know, when you look about the history of an organization, what they meant to a legacy of a league and
Yeah.
a city,
Yeah.
these are the things that the NFL needs to look at. You're going to make money in the NFL regardless. The NFL is a non-profit organization. Guys, the NFL is just like Donald Trump. They don't pay taxes.
They don't. That's funny,
They're like
Big C.
Donald Trump. So don't feel sorry for anybody in the NFL, especially an owner.
Well, Big C, this is ironic because the Super Bowl is the number one sporting event in the United States and maybe even in the world, Big C. I know we talk about the Olympics, etc. But when I think about the Oakland Raiders are actually playing the New England Patriots next year in New Mexico City. And I look at this ban that's gone on with all the hatred that's going on in the country about, you know, different religions and ethnic groups. I never thought America would be this way again. But how would the Raiders and the Patriots even be received in New Mexico City with such hatred coming from POTUS in the White House, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you know, the Raiders are Mexico's team, Charlton. I don't care how you slice it. They all think that you live in Oakland.
Yeah.
You know, ironically, when you look at the black and silver that's worn down there, New England will always be the visiting team.
Yeah.
But, you know, the outmatch will not be against the athletes, Charlton, because they're pawns in this whole ploy,
Yeah.
you know, that is being spread through stupidity.
Yeah.
You know, the athletes go out and entertain the fans. And when you get a game in a foreign city, you know, whether it's in England, whether it's in Mexico, Charlton, the players go out and do what they were hired to do.
Yeah.
The president is not doing what he was hired to do. That's the difference we have in America. In sports, if you don't perform, you're going to be gone. You know, if you do something...
No, that's not true, Big C. Look at Brock Osweiler. He's still competing for a job.
Well, trust me, Charlton, he'll be gone after the draft.
Yeah.
The Houston Texans will cut Brock Osweiler either before or after the NFL draft.
They're trying to get...
Make it through the month of the NFL draft. They will eat that contract, Charlton.
Yeah.
Because they realize that move, taking Brock Osweiler, was just like electing Donald Trump.
Yeah.
You didn't know what you had till you got it there, and all of a sudden you regret every moment of it.
Yeah, that's...
You know, Donald Trump is like the contract clause that professional athletes have.
Yeah.
You know, conduct detrimental to the organization.
Yeah,
that's what he's doing to the United States right now.
That's funny, Big C. And you know we love we love talking about things that are controversial in money. I think, again, we said Osweiler got about $73 million, and he never even met the GM for the Houston Texans. That's how them good old boys down in Texas do their work, Big C. So actually, he's a pretty smart man, and he can get away with pretending to be worth $73 million, Big C. And out here, I keep hearing, I think it's Ted Robinson. He's the play-by-play guy on the radio for the 49ers. Used to be Joe Starkey, who was excellent, did play-by-play for Cal and also the 49ers. Now they had Ted Robinson, and they keep saying the 49ers need a new quarterback, as if they don't recall the last one that took them to the Super Bowl is still here. And I just want to say this segment is sponsored by the California Lottery. What can a buck do for you, Big C? The Powerball is up to $206 million, Big C. I know that's not a lot of money to you, but for most of us working stiffs, that's a lot of money, Big C. What can $200 million do for you, Big C? You're going to have to buy more coffee cans from the way I understand banking down the South, Big C. A lot more coffee cans. But go ahead and buy the lotto ticket. Half of that money it goes to help the schools. And even though they're trying to close a lot of schools because they don't have the funding for it, I believe the lotto might be just another alternative for people trying to find money. And Big C, I want to bring up something else. Another guy who may not have a job next year, even though he's a very good football player. We know how the media likes to put certain people on a pedestal. And I think about Colin Kaepernick being one of those guys that has taken a lot of hatred from our national media. No one really trying to defend him but a few people. And that's just about taking a knee during the national anthem. And I got to bring this up because we talked about Tom Brady. He's kind of, America's, I guess, white America's sweetheart quarterback. They want to build him up on a pedestal, even though he's like an intellectually vapid athlete. They're taking the distraction from Tom Brady, and they keep talking about Carmelo Anthony, maybe leaving the Knicks, and LeBron James and Charles Barkley. But think about this guy, Martellus Bennett. He's Tom Brady's teammate, right? And he would be the one that would be looked at when it comes to search and frisk. Not Tom Brady. But unlike Brady being the guy that's given everything and hasn't earned it, Big C, as far as this hype and for being a conscious football player, Martellus Bennett said he doesn't like bigotry and he wouldn't go to the White House and meet Donald Trump, whether they won the Super Bowl or not, and because he doesn't like hatred. I think that's just a great thing to say. I'm anti-hatred. Why couldn't Brady even say something that innocuous, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, what you're going to finally see in sports is the racial divide with teams. If Donald Trump is so gracious that he wants to invite a professional team to the White House, I think you're going to see the majority of the minority players not go.
Yeah.
Because of the stances that he made during his political commentary.
Yeah.
And I don't think that a team should step in and say we're going to find a player, whatever, for his political beliefs, because you're not going to find the other culture of players for their political beliefs. But,
yeah.
Tom Brady, as they say, he's going to take the low road on this thing. He's not going to speak up. He's not going to say, they're not going to call him to the plate like they did Colin Kaepernick.
But why not? Is it deeper than race, or is it that simple? They just want to protect the white guy, Big C. Your thoughts?
It's as simple as race and protecting Tom Brady's legacy. You don't want to put Tom Brady on the hot seat where he has to speak out against something that he potentially may be uncomfortable with.
But Big C, what's uncomfortable about saying I'm against domestic violence? We can do that. That's not controversial. What's wrong with saying I'm against hatred and bigotry and xenophobia? That's not controversial. And what's wrong with saying I'm against men that grab women by the crotch and get away with it and they think it's funny? Just good old boy locker room talk. What's controversial about telling boys who are watching football, and ironically, Super Bowl Sunday is one of the worst days for domestic violence. And I know we have a president that grabs women by the vagina, and he thinks it's funny, and maybe some men approve of that, unless it's their daughters or their wives, Big C. But what's wrong with making that statement? Because the NFL came out and said no domestic violence, and we won't tolerate it. They even had guys crying. Now, here's a guy that got elected president for espousing his views on sexual assault, and here's a guy that's brazen enough to put his hat in the locker room, make America great again. He's not that dumb of a person. He knew what he was doing, Big C. So, again, why would they not have Tom Brady come out and say, we are anti-domestic violence, we are anti-assault, and we are anti-hatred? That's not controversial, Big C.
Did you ever think that the guys that are not not asking the question, believing that, you take it too far. You got to think that the guys who don't ask the question believe in Donald Trump's stance and all those things he just spoke about. Why do you want to lambaste one of your own who believe in it also? Because if you bring that question forth, now that exposes you of being that type of person. You know, we can always point it to asking it, and I'm not agreeing with Tom Brady's stance. But I'm looking at these reporters who fail and refuse to answer the question.
Yeah.
This is the lifestyle that they adorn, okay?
Yeah.
This is what they believe. When you don't hear these hard questions on television or radio, or you see them in print, Charlton, you have to wonder what is the background of these reporters, these broadcasters.
Yeah.
What do they believe in socially? What do they believe in assault-wise? Charlton, I have to believe that this is the lifestyle that they believe in, that it's acceptable for these things to happen to other Americans. They don't atone for this, Charlton.
Yeah.
Because we would hear this all the time.
Yeah.
We would hear it, but it's an acceptable measure of behavior to these people. It's just like with the Trump tape when it came out.
Yeah.
It was known by many people, Charlton. NBC had a copy of this, okay? NBC News. They knew what Billy Bush had done until TMZ leaked it out because they're tabloid television.
Yeah.
It was never going to be known that Billy Bush's bosses knew about this, and they were covering it up, as we've seen in many other scandalous situations, Charlton, where white privilege has been protected.
And I think they even fired the guy for bringing it out, Big C. And I don't know if that's the right message to send, but they fired him just for that, Big C.
Because he let out this secret, Charlton. This is the reason why white reporters don't ask these questions. This is what they do. This is the lifestyle they lead. And they told Billy, as long as this doesn't come out, you got a job. But when it came out, you don't have a job because now we're being exposed for what we are.
So we
know what you do.
So let me just ask, because I might disagree with you a little bit. I just want to say that ESPN and even Fox, they did about a whole segment several weeks in a row on Colin Kaepernick and the flag, and then they went up to the Seattle Seahawks. They talked about different leagues, whether the NBA or the NHL, Major League Baseball, but they kept putting this thing on television. They even made stories about it. Even the late John Saunders, they had a story about Colin Kaepernick and patriotism and the Black Lives Matter movement. We all know they did that when there was Carmelo Anthony and LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. So they spent time talking about it. And you're just saying they won't do the same thing for Tom because he's Caucasian. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what it is, Charlton. Because he is in so much to the NFL. I take Roger Goodell's stance. He's not bigger than the Shield, okay?
Yeah.
That's what Roger told me. He's not bigger than the Shield. I'll spend whatever kind of money I have to prove that he's committed a criminal act against the league. And Goodell did that.
Yeah.
At one point, I thought that Goodell was on a witch hunt, Charlton.
Yeah.
Goodell knows a lot more than we know.
Yeah.
Of the person. He does.
Yeah.
He would not have went to the lengths that he did if he did not have the evidence to do it. And the court upheld it, Charlton. That's the wonderful thing about the judicial system that we have in America.
Yeah.
The court upheld it. The fans are upset. Fan is another word for a fool, though, okay?
Yeah.
We got to look at that at times.
Yeah.
But, when the commissioner, who's been given autonomy by the owners, and even Robert Kraft, to do as he chooses, so he couldn't get mad at the guy because he hired him. He paid his salary.
Yeah.
And so he did his due diligence, what you hired for. You ever wonder why, Charlton, so many African-American players are the only ones who get busted for marijuana use or illegal substance use?
I've seen that in college, too. I've known almost all the white guys I knew that played ball in college. They were always on weed, on marijuana, but none of them ever went to jail for it, Big C.
Well, I've known many as a player who constantly induced into the cannabis.
Well, Jose Canseco told us about that, and they ostracized him for saying that too, Big C.
Yeah, and he was a minority, Charlton. Jose Canseco was a minority.
Yeah.
He blew the whistle talking about, you don't expose what goes on. You have to expose, Charlton. Dr. Amalo in the movie Concussions exposed what was going on, Charlton, as far as the abuse that the athletes. Think about this, Charlton, and I'll ask anybody who listens.
Yeah.
If you live on opiate-based drugs, you have to understand what it does to your body.
Yeah.
Okay? We're talking about liver. We're talking about kidney. We're talking about, at times, 3, 4, 5 days without being able to go to the restroom, Charlton. That's not healthy on the body.
Yeah.
You have to be able to discharge this waste matter from your body, and when you can't is, Charlton. And cannabis has been proven to be legal in several states. But the NFL saying, well, we can't allow that because it's going to hurt the pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah. So.
And that's basically what comes out. If anybody, I think that's one the league should have to disclose, Charlton, as well as college football.
Yeah.
You have to disclose the amount of money you spend on pharmaceutical drugs for your team during the season.
Wow.
I think the public would be astonished with that. You know, I look at, we got the Super Bowl coming up, Charlton.
Yeah.
There's nobody healthy going into the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Julio Jones has this bad toe that he's had all year long.
Yeah.
He's a wide receiver in every play he's driving down the field, and he's a huge man.
Yeah.
No, I know what it's like to have the bad toe. I had two of them, both of them at the same time.
Yeah.
Very devastating, very painful. You took injections into your feet. You took pills into your body.
Yeah.
So, and these pills were not aspirin. They weren't there, okay?
Yeah.
Trust me. And so your body had to be put through a state that was chemically induced to be able to play. And so that's acceptable, to be chemically induced so that you can go out and make somebody else money.
Yeah.
You know, this is what they do to farm animals. They induce them so that they can grow faster, so
bigger and stronger,
to make the owner money.
Yeah.
And that's basically what they do to athletes, Charlie.
Well, Big C, I tell you, the thing is, and I want to say that this segment is sponsored by United Labor, guaranteed $100,000 life insurance with no medical questions. Also, we endorse by the American Heart Association and the American Cancer Society. We also work with all of the unions in the country under the AFL-CIO. We want to put Americans back to work. We're looking to recruit over 1,000 licensed insurance brokers because we simply want to put people back to work. Tweet out to Big C Sports at Yes Charlton on Twitter. That's YES Charlton on Twitter. And also, Big C, the thing I want to say about sports, I've always been a believer that from the youth sports, sports is a $1 billion industry, and it's boys and girls sports that's the foundation of that industry. And whether you want to be it or not, like Charles Barkley says, I'm not a role model, and maybe based on his personal lifestyle, he shouldn't be. But when you have access to a microphone and a camera, there are people who will look up to you. I'm not saying we have to be perfect because nobody is, but I do think that Tom Brady, just like the play against Oakland back in the day, I think he dropped the ball because all you have to say, even if you're a dumb person, is I am anti-discrimination, I am anti-prejudice, I am anti-domestic violence. That's not controversial. But to wear the hat and say nothing, I just want to play football, then why'd you bring the hat? And even his boss, Bob Kraft, he's inviting Roger Goodell to his house or to New England or whatever he does. But he's trying to do that to kind of appease them and kind of get in good with them. But I would like to see Roger Goodell come out and make a statement for the most popular sport in the United States of America. And there are hordes of young black boys that are trying to get bigger, stronger, and faster to go into the feeder system of college football and then on to the pros. I'm so proud of Martellus Bennett for saying I'm against bigotry. That's what Dr. Martin Luther King said. That was not controversial, what Dr. Martin Luther King did. So why couldn't Tom Brady just say that? It's so simple, unless you really do believe in the stance of Donald Trump. That's where I think he dropped the ball, but maybe you're right. Maybe he believes the same things also, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you have to not disagree with someone, Charlton. You got to have the same beliefs. This is what America's foundation is. It's like political beliefs in the party. When you disagree with the other party, you let it be known.
Yeah.
And that's manning up.
Yeah.
Your beliefs. And you don't sit there in a world of time. And I think about the so-called leaders of America. I remember Dick Saban said, well, I forgot to vote.
Yeah.
Okay?
You mean the coach down in Alabama?
And don't lie to the public, Jonathan. Don't think that they're that dumb, that you're so wrapped up in your office that drives it off as if there wasn't a voting poll.
And that's funny. Yeah.
You're going to tell that great lie. That's like saying I have no interest in the NFL when he left LSU.
Yeah.
Like he said, I had no interest in college football when he left Miami.
And you know the irony about Nick Saban doing that, whether they voted for Trump or not? The oxymoron is whether it's he or Dabo Swinney, they all like to recruit the black athlete. About 80% of their teams are African American. And now they're willing to put a law in place and support a guy who has these egregious views and these draconian views about black men and men of color, that they're willing to vote for a law that will profile 80% of the kids they try to recruit. They're not out in Beverly Hills and trying to recruit a lot of white kids, Big C. They're in the inner cities and these rural communities, the same one that deal with the most police brutality. But these good old boys, they have an interest in just making money. Show me the money, like Tom Cruise says. Show me the money, and that's all they really care about, Big C.
Look at this. Today was National Signing Day for high school football.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alabama had the number 1 class. Clemson's in the top 10.
Yeah.
And of all those players between those two universities, I'm going to say they decided at least 45 to 50 players between them.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm going to say at least 40 of them were African American, Joe.
Yeah.
At least 40. If you don't believe in equality, then flip that chart and don't sign the African American players, Joe.
Yeah.
But you sign them to make you better as a coach.
Yeah.
That's what you sign them for. You're not signing them to make them better as players because you wouldn't have signed them if they weren't great players.
Yeah.
But you sign them to perpetuate your legacy, your financial gain. You do nothing for them beyond aesthetics. A half a dozen of them will play pro football.
Yeah.
But where will the rest of them go, John? Of the 25 players that Alabama brought in today, how many will play professional football?
Yeah.
They all cannot, Charlton, because if you look at the number of players that he's churned out since he's been at the university, he doesn't have 70 pro players since he's been at the university.
Yeah.
So you can't recruit classes that size and guarantee that they're all going to be pro.
Yeah.
But your paycheck will cash, okay? Your paycheck will cash. You cannot guarantee the future of these young men socially. And that's what you have to strive for. As much as winning a game in sports, Charlton,
Yeah.
you have to strive for the social development of these young athletes.
Yeah.
Not just worry about how big and strong they get in the weight room and on the conditioning track, but how well you develop their minds, how well you get them to adapt to society and go out and be interactive and not just be leaders, Joe.
Yeah. And see, that's incredible, Big C. I do want to say, I know sometimes everybody wants to be the king, but most kings in any society, they have a lot of scars. You know, they're battle tested, like John McCain. And I'm not, I mean, I've been Democrat and Republican in my lifetime because you do vote what's for your best interest, but I never voted for hatred. And I just think for Martellus Bennett saying things that protect all people, not just black men, but all people, even white kids that may face some police brutality, but most of them don't, Big C. But I just applaud someone being a man and saying something that will protect his kids. I know Tom Brady doesn't have to worry about that. He's probably in an all-white community and doesn't have a lot of interaction once he leaves to that stadium. Yeah. Yeah. And so outside of his football teammates, and who's the guy, Willie McGinnis, that calls him brother, and I love you, brother. You know, Willie McGinnis can't bring his family to certain parts of town because with this stop and frisk is voted into law, then they'll be able to stop and frisk just because they choose to. And I talked to police officers, and this is the fact. And he said, well, we have a right to say if we suspect you, we can pull you over. They're not doing that to white people. And that's a shame about Tom Brady, because white America's given him everything, and he won't even do anything as decent as saying we're against discrimination and we're against hatred. He can't even do that, Big C.
Well, I guarantee you, Willie McGinnis doesn't spend much time in his hometown, Joe, but it's Cleveland, Ohio, okay?
Yeah.
That's where he grew up. He doesn't spend much time there. You know, he might sneak into town and sneak out, but it's in a hurry.
Yeah.
Because he's not that comfortable being there because it's an African-American environment.
Yeah.
And he didn't grow up in the better part of town, Joe. He may have moved his family later, but he did.
Yeah.
To go back to his childhood hobble, Joe, he doesn't do that, nor does he feel comfortable with it. Matter of fact, he's probably even ostracized those people out of his life.
Yeah.
So to sit there and say what doesn't happen, when you have the affordability to live where you want, and that's what all of America wants, and that's what all America desires.
Yeah.
But you can't go out and say that you know about another part of society. It's like electing Ben Carson,
Yeah.
the Secretary of Urban Housing and Development. We're talking about a brain surgeon, okay?
Yeah.
The Secretary of Urban Housing and Development. Now, if he was a brain surgeon, why did you not make him the Attorney General?
Yeah.
Do you have a clue what each one of these positions hold? But that was a racial nominee for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
To make this man Secretary of Urban Housing and Development, which he knows nothing about.
Yeah.
The only thing that he knows urban is driving past one on the freeway, okay?
Yeah.
That's the only thing Ben Carson knows about urban.
That's funny, Macy.
So when you're putting people in positions based on ethnicity, and that's what he did with Ben Carson.
Yeah.
This was an ethnicity appointing, because this man was qualified to be the Surgeon General of the United States, but you made him Director of Urban Housing because he was black.
Yeah, and you know what? And I just think for our country to overcome the pains that we've had, we got to be the leaders of the world. That means you talk about things that sometimes they may be a bit painful, but it's by talking about it that we bring our country closer together, Big C, and that's what I hope that all of us can do as we try to make America the land of the free and the home of the brave. I do want to pay homage to a lady by the name of Nancy Armour, and she's a writer, sports columnist for USA Today, and she's the one that wrote that article. And it wasn't being, controversial. It's just saying that if you're an athlete and you're on a pedestal, and we have an obligation, if we can just say the decent thing, no no violence and no discrimination, no hatred. That's not hard for anybody to say, and to have someone who's given so much, so much praise that's unwarranted. To me, that's just a shame, especially for Black History Month, as we celebrate the NFL, and it has mostly African-American football players on the field, and most of those guys and their kids are going to be under stop and frisk if Donald Trump gets his way. And again, Brady and Kraft say nothing about it. I also want to say this segment is sponsored by One Life America Life Insurance. We're the leaders in the country when it comes to final expense. Tweet out to Charlton and Big C Sports on the iHeart Radio Network, because we simply want to put Americans back to work, Big C. And we can do it. Tweet us at Yes Charlton on Twitter. Again, that's Yes Charlton on Twitter. Every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time, worldwide on the iHeart Radio Network. Big C, there's one thing I want to bring up too, because we talk about the NFL and we love, Media Day at the Super Bowl. There's a lady, and you talked about the national recruits today. I read an article where some of these mothers, they're being able to fly with their kids now to recruiting. Does that make any sense, Big C? I just heard about that today.
Well, John, I think that's going overboard. You got to have a young man that can make the decision on his own. I think when you bring parents into the equation on campus, is that there's a lot of influential things that you can do to a parent to help the child decide at that point.
Yeah.
The parent loves that university so much because she may have gotten a perk or two.
Yeah.
And that's something that the NCAA cannot control, because she looks at problems in her head when she gets back home and sitting at her house.
Yeah.
So, these are the things that you're going to have to be very careful being a watchdog over, Charlton. I know back during my recruiting trips, it was a wonderful experience, to get on a plane, to fly somewhere across the country.
Yeah.
To be there with other young recruits, Charlton, with this wide-eyed ambition of being there on this campus, seeing this enormous stadium after playing in a high school stadium that probably seated a couple thousand at best, on a good day.
Yeah.
But, to go there and see this environment, to see this campus that was like a city within itself, and to have to make that critical decision on your own, because your parent is not going to be on campus with you, Charlton. You
Yeah.
have to find a comfortable environment for you. And so I think the NCAA is doing something wrong. They're opening Pandora's box. This is that scenario that we talked about, pay to play.
Yeah.
Okay? This is what's going to happen in that, is that we want your son really to be here. You tell us what you need and you'll have it. So all of a sudden,
Yeah.
mom's got this new Escalade like me.
Yeah. Hey, wait a minute. Are you saying they can recruit people by giving them the family members Escalators, Big C?
Well, you never know what goes on. There's nothing beyond, the scope of what some programs will do, Jonathan. We've heard the things, like your buddy Reggie Bush, who got the house. We've seen things with athletes. Ohio State, when Jim Preston was there, with, half the players had cars from this Toyota dealership.
Yeah.
Players running around in brand new cars on campus. We knew what happened to SMU back in the 70s, Jonathan, when they got the death penalty, with one of the major boosters was a car dealer,
Yeah.
a Nissan car dealer, and they all were driving 300 ZXs, around campus. So these things are not beyond the scope of humanity, Jonathan. People will do what they need to do to accomplish what they need.
Yeah.
And when there's money involved, Jonathan, they're not going out getting these college athletes, these high school athletes coming to college, not to make money off of them, okay?
Yeah.
This is income. So whatever you give, you're going to get it back in spades, because they're going to create more and more revenue selling jerseys, selling tickets, getting you TV time, Joe.
Yeah, but Big C, that's incredible. I think when it comes to national recruit, I've been invited to speak in different places around the country, and they're actually flying me around. I'm going to be up in Nevada and later this month, also down in Phoenix, Arizona in about another 2 months, and we speak to college football coaches and even the high school football coaches, and we talk about how schools can raise money for their athletic departments, and we also represent a clothing line where we can help make the uniforms for any pro, college, or high school team, basically anywhere in the world, Big C, on Big C Sports, on iHeart Radio every Monday through Friday, and at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we are worldwide. And I bring that up, Big C, because I just want to bring up this point that you and I talk about all the time. Anyone can complain. I mean, it's easy to complain. You don't have to do anything to just complain. You can always complain. But if you're going to complain, be a part of a solution. And the solution here at Big C Sports is we want to teach people how to get business credit so they can start their own companies. And I know for many African Americans, we're always the last hired and first fired, but it's not making an excuse. Just find a way to either lead, follow, or get out of the way. And what we want to do at Big C Sports is we want to teach people how to get business credit, how to get your Dun and Bradstreet, so you can stop going from being unemployed and begging somebody for a job and doing something for yourself, and we can give you the guidance. Just tweet out Yes Charlton on Twitter, and we can try to get you started down that path. Big C, I want to bring something up too that I think is very important, and you talk about it all the time, and I'm glad about your knowledge, because sometimes you touch on topics, that are a little bit controversial, but that's what makes all of us grow, Big C. And I want to deal with this thing about the media. We talked about, Mark Davis wanting to take the Raiders down to Las Vegas or Mexico or wherever somebody would take them, and so many other teams that have moved in the past. Well, Roger Goodell, I want to touch on this one more time. Well, Roger Goodell, knowing it's Black History Month, we have a league that's primarily African Americans that has made millionaires, billionaires, Big C. They're not doing it on the labor of white players. That's just a fact. Or is he going to do anything consciously to say, I understand that hatred is not acceptable, and if you think about what Dr. King stood for, wouldn't it be a great statement by Roger Goodell to just say, we're here for equality, no segregation, and no hatred? That's a universal word, not just for African Americans. Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, Charlton, you think about it. Super Bowl is played in Black History Month.
Yeah.
But there's no mention of Black history at all during the Super Bowl. By the announcers, not by any of the banners around, not by the celebration of the event. And that's not being racial in any kind of way, that's being factual. So, he's made his non-stance already, Charlton. He's the coordinator of all what goes on. And so, unless Black History Month, Charlton, is a part of the overall celebration, it's not going to be mentioned during the game. You think about the halftime celebration. Is there anything dedicated to Black history, though?
No.
The coin toss. You think about the Super Bowl coin. Is there any part of that medallion, Charlton, that emphasizes African American history? No, Charlton. And when you think about the opening of the Museum of National African American History in Washington a few months ago, Charlton, you would think that it would be symbolic of the NFL to embrace that. Because when you think about their employee base, Charlton, 75% of their employee base got here through that means of trafficking, Charlton. That's their origin.
Wow.
And not to pay respect or homage to their origin by, representing it during the Super Bowl in any fashion, Charlton. At least put an emblem in an end zone, in the corner of the end zone.
Yeah.
Celebrating Black History Month. That's what the Super Bowl stands for. They talk about togetherness, but you look at it culturally, African Americans are left out other than just players.
And see, that's a shame, because these reporters are asking Tom Brady how he smells. He probably stinks if he's an athlete playing in sweat and for 2 or 3 hours, Big C. But you talk about, this is what we call Big C Sports Real Talk. And if you're anywhere on the planet, we have iHeart Radio, the #1 media company in the United States of America. And Big C Sports is the #1 sports show on the planet. We don't have 1,900 guests on every program so we can fill time. We just want to talk about things that are real. And if you think about it, when you're in Rome, you do as the Romans do. When you're in someone's house, you pay homage to them. You pay respect. You shake their hand. You even take off your hat if you're a gentleman with some class. But I just think for the labor force that makes up about 75% of the league, and you don't even take the time to acknowledge the beautiful African American culture that has made the NFL successful. And that's just a fact. I'm not calling for this at all, because people are going to do what they want to do. Imagine if every black African American took a knee for the Super Bowl just to acknowledge African American history, whether it's whether it's Marvin Collins, or whether it's the great Dr. Martin Luther King, or John Lewis, or all the great people that fought for us to have freedom. And now we have the biggest spotlight in the world, and we say nothing but they're asking Tom Brady about his hat that says "Make America Great Again," and he's playing in a league where everybody's going to be stop and frisk if they have black skin. Big C, I just think the NFL can have a little bit more compassion and knowledge to even bring that up for even 30 seconds. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you talk about making America great again, so you have to look at the contributions of the African Americans on every level, not just in sports, but in architecture, design, engineering, this cultural development. African Americans have been very significant, but we leave them to the side because we're not the majority when it comes to race. And all of their contributions to America. But
we're the majority when it comes to the league, though, Big C. At least the majority when it comes to the league.
Well, Charles, I spent a couple weeks going to Washington, D.C. And when you walk around this magnificent city,
yeah.
The basis of our political backdrop. And when you look at the architect, Charlton, and African Americans get no credit for designing and building this city. The basis of American politics was built on the backs of African Americans, Charlton.
Yeah.
And they get no credibility for what they did for America, what they built for America. They built America's heart and pulse. But there's no credit given to it, Charlton.
Yeah.
This is where, until that stance is lightened over time, and I don't know if it ever will be, this is when we talk about lack of equality and opportunity in a country.
Yeah.
You won't give the achievement of gain in America to those people who created it. Just like any voluntarily immigrant into America and all the non-voluntary immigrants into America.
Yeah.
They did not receive the credit for what they made this country, Charles.
Yeah, and I think also when we talked about the World Series, the Big C World Series between the Chicago Cubs and the Cleveland Indians, they didn't even pay homage to the Negro Baseball League that was broken up because they wanted to get the African American fans and the best players to help make the major leagues better, and they started that with Jackie Robinson. I just think it'd be important to add inclusion, and I know maybe we need more. It's not about having the Rooney Rule for coaches. It's about having respect for the majority of your athletes, Big C. Now, some people say, well, why is it a big concern? Well, if we can praise bigotry and hate and xenophobia, can't we praise the history, the month for about 75% of the athletes playing in the game? I just think that's important because we praise mostly every culture doing something at some point in time in this country. And as a person in media, as African American, I just think it makes so much sense. And that's why I'm proud of Martellus Bennett. I'm sure his kids, Big C, I don't know if he has any, but his kids can look up to him and say, Daddy, I'm proud of you. Thanks for just being a man. It doesn't take a lot to do that. I also want to say this segment is sponsored by Big C Sports and Athletic Insurance. We can insure any athlete for the most part, whether you're pro, college, or high school, all over the world, Big C. And I want to make sure if you're an athletic event or a sporting event, tweet out to Big C Sports at Yes Charlton on Twitter, and we can make sure that you get covered. And again, our job is to make sure that we create opportunity, not just to talk about, what we're doing and what we can do. We really want to make sure that everybody's included, no matter what your race, your ethnicity, your religious affiliation, because America is a land of the free and the home of the brave, and Big C Sports wants to represent that, Big C. That's important to me. As we get into some of the talk of the game, Big C, I know you talked about Julio Jones having a kind of a hitch in his giddy up with his toe, but that didn't stop him from getting 9 catches and 180 yards in the game against Green Bay, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, this is what we talked about earlier. How do you treat a player? How do you eliminate the pain when you go into a game? Mind over matter is one thing.
Yeah.
But your mind can't function when it's in total pain. So, this is what we talk about in this pharmaceutical marijuana thing, in allowing players to have it.
Yeah.
And certain players will benefit a lot from it. Some may not. But, it's about the monitoring. How many players benefit from Oxycontin when they're out there playing? It does a lot of things to a player.
But Rush Limbaugh's not playing football, Big C. He sweats when he's sitting down. Just sitting down, he sweats, Big C. He's not playing football, is he?
But, and looking forward to this game, Joe, all the pressure's off the New England Patriots. All the pressure's on the Atlanta Falcons.
Why do you say that, Big C?
Well, this is the second time being there as an organization, but the first time with this crew.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's second nature for the Patriots organization. You always have people on the team that's been in a Super Bowl. That's what they've had since the first Super Bowl with Belichick. They've always had multi-players that have been there, so they know what the preparation is like, Jonathan. They know what the hype is like for the game, so they're not put out of place. They're not awestruck. When you go to a championship game for the first time, it's almost like going to the fair, to the circus.
Yeah.
You're just enamored with everything around it, Jonathan. A lot of players get engulfed.
Yeah.
And so that's what Dan Quinn has to protect against. He has to try to keep things as normal as he can for the players. And as much as players say on interviews, oh, this is just another game, that's not the BS. So
it's not just another game. Right.
This is a life-altering game for a lot of people. And so when you get there, they always talk about embrace the event. You don't want to embrace nothing, Jonathan, unless you're embracing the football or tackling somebody.
Yeah.
Those are the only things that you want to embrace in a game of this magnitude. If you can get rid of all those outside distractions, Jonathan, if you can man up and be in your room at a decent time and go with your normal routine, even though you're on the road, go with your normal routine, you're going to have a better outcome in these games, Jonathan.
Yeah.
But, Quinn has been there as an assistant coach in Seattle.
Yeah.
He was there twice, so he knows what it's like from that perspective. But now he's the head honcho. Will he be able to deliver that? Bill Belichick has that veteran staff.
Yeah.
Who knows what to expect, who knows how to prepare players. He has a handful of new players on the team, but he has enough veterans, Jonathan, to smack somebody in the place.
That's funny. He's not going to tolerate it. And speaking of tolerating it, how do you think Matt Ryan, I believe he came out of Boston College, he's one of the highest paid players in the league. He has not had the success of Tom Brady, but he's kind of done it the hard way. He's had as much losing as he's had winning, Big C. How does it matter? Is it more pressure on him or less? Because the Patriots are a 3-point favorite by Vegas, and obviously the underdog can usually win the Super Bowl, Big C, just for a hint from what I'm hearing out in the desert, Big C. But why would he feel any pressure? He's not expected to win anyway, Big C.
Well, Charlton, you got to look at it this way. The Falcons' success this year was offensively driven, okay?
Yeah.
This was an offensively driven team, so, them going out scoring 40, 45 points in the game, they weren't doing it by turnovers. Special team plays.
Yeah.
They were doing it by big plays on their offense.
Yeah.
So this is what they're relying on more than anything else, Charlton, is the big plays from their offense. And so they're going to have to show up with those things, Jonathan. They can't rely on their defense to come up with the big plays. Versus when you look at New England, they're an opportunistic team.
Yeah.
They were the top defense in the NFL.
Yeah.
So you got the top-rated defense playing against the top-rated offense. This is one of those things that something has to give.
Yeah.
And we know that Atlanta has this big play, explosiveness. But the key to this game is Freeman and Coleman, the center running backs for Atlanta.
Yeah.
They have to touch the ball at least 27 times, Charlton, out of the backfield for Atlanta to win this game. If they don't touch the ball 27 times, Atlanta's not going to win this game. Because if New England can find a way to eliminate them, we know that Julio Jones can get to 300 yards on any given Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay? But if all 300 going to Julio, they're going to have a tough time getting the ball to other people.
That's funny, Big C.
This is how you got to look at it. I respect them all as great players. I really respect Julio because he took over when Calvin Johnson left off.
Yeah.
Wide receiver from the Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
Is this unstoppable beast. But tell me what wide receiver that Bill Belichick has not faced, Jonathan.
Yeah.
That's how you got to look at it. What wide receiver in the NFL has Bill Belichick not faced? He has found a defensive plan for every wide receiver that he has faced year in and year out.
Yeah.
And it's been successful more often than not. So, with 2 weeks to prepare for the Atlanta Falcons, I give the edge to New England's defense. I like what Matt Ryan can do offensively and throwing the ball, but if he gets so to the point of a gunslinger, that he takes the ball out of his 2 running back hands, the best tandem in the NFL, Coleman and Freedom, he's going to put this team's chance at victory in peril.
Well, Big C, I know there's so much when it comes to who's going to make a big play and who's going to come up with an injury in the game, Las Vegas style, and who's going to lay the football on the ground a couple of times. And there's always something weird that happens in a football game in the Super Bowl. I can't remember the receiver's name, the tight end for the Dallas Cowboys when they played Pittsburgh down in the Rose Bowl.
Jackie Smith.
Yeah, man, don't you feel bad for Jackie Smith that he dropped the football in that game, but at the same time, the Cowboys would have won that game had he caught it Las Vegas style. Your thoughts, Big C?
He's one of the greatest tight ends to play in the game.
Yeah.
He played in an era that the tight end wasn't a main cog in the offense, but, he's a Hall of Fame player.
Yeah.
It's sad that a player gets remembered for that one play in the entire career.
Yeah.
Where he was sliding down, the ball got to his body and bounced off.
Yeah.
And who knows would the Cowboys been able to win the game?
Yeah.
Because it's multiple plays in the game. When there's a fumble, when there's an interception, people tend to forget about those.
Yeah.
But, it's a shame that, that his legacy is tarnished by that. But, the Super Bowl has always been a place, Charlton, for great performance. There's been performances that are memorable. There's been performances that you want to forget.
Yeah.
So, that's how you got to address the game over time.
Well, Vic, see, I think you're right. And everybody's talking about seeing a shootout because both teams can get the ball downfield. And I do agree New England has the better defense. But the running game of the Falcons, that dual threat, and also Julio getting at least 12 receptions, and that might be enough to put them over the top. If it comes down to the kicking game, both teams are pretty decent kicking the ball. But even coaching, Dan Quinn's not going to be out-coached by Belichick. Remember, with Seattle, they beat New England up at Quest Field. They also, had a chance to beat them in the Super Bowl again. That wasn't Quinn's fault, Big C. But it's just a game that we can all be excited about. And I know there's so much writing on it and money. I think there's more money being bet on this Super Bowl outside of Las Vegas, Big C, than there is in Las Vegas, Big C. Your thoughts on that?
What do you mean by
Yeah. Right. That's funny. Here, something else I want to bring up in the final 10 minutes of the program today. Just transitioning a little bit to the NBA. We have some games tonight, and we have Indiana at Charlotte. Minnesota's going to be at Cleveland. Atlanta is at Miami. New Orleans is at Detroit. And New York is at Brooklyn. Toronto, they're playing at Boston. That should be a good matchup there in the Eastern Conference. Philadelphia is at Dallas. The LA Clippers are at Phoenix. Memphis is at Denver. Milwaukee is going to play at Utah. Chicago's at Oklahoma City. Westbrook is going to probably have another triple-double. And then Charlotte's at Golden State with Steph Curry and them good old boys out in the Bay Area. I do want to take a little time to pay homage to the Super 25 high school girls basketball rankings. Number 1 is Riverdale out of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. They're 20-0. Number 2, St. John's College out of Washington, D.C. They're 17-1. Number 3 is Paul the Sixth at Fairfax, Virginia, 19-1. Number 4, Centennial out of Las Vegas. They're 23-2. How do so many teams in the desert have good teams? Number 5 is Clovis West out of Fresno, California. They're also 22-2. So a lot of good high school basketball going on for the boys and girls. And I just want to pay knowledge to a lot of the good teams out there. Big C, you know how you sometimes keep your moonshine and some of your cans in the garage with those mouse traps or moose traps you have set up, Big C? What's up with Derek Fisher? Does he know Kim Kardashian got robbed? I think he had $300,000 worth of jewelry taken out of his home in Los Angeles. Do guys just keep that kind of money around? Why don't they put it in a bank safe deposit box, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Chelsea, when you look at these robberies that are occurring with athletes and celebrities,
yeah,
these are not random events. These are people that know
they know, yeah,
about your movements, your whereabouts.
Yeah.
So to think that somebody's all of a sudden going to roll up to Derek Fisher's house just like they rolled up to Kim Kardashian's hotel room,
yeah,
not knowing the logistics of everything around her, and make a move like that, to go in and rob a player, relieve him of his 5 championship rings.
Yeah.
Yes, they need more to it than the money, but they're insured they can be replaced. And the greatest thing about having a championship ring is that the company, Johnston's, who normally makes them, Charlton,
yeah,
has that ring model in stock and a copy of that ring. So it can be replaced. But, when I think about that, these athletes, Charlton, these celebrities, who put themselves in peril by the people they associate with.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it is. You think somebody's going to drive to Derek Fisher's house by chance, knowing what Derek Fisher is, and that Derek Fisher is gone.
Yeah.
At that particular time. It doesn't happen. So these are some obvious scenarios. You feel empathy for these athletes, but you don't feel sorry for them.
Yeah.
If you're going to keep that much laying around, you should be in a gated community where people can't get in.
Yeah. Well,
That's the thing.
sometimes it's the people in the gated community that steal the most, Big C. That's why they hide behind the gate.
You tell me that I should put a fence up?
Yeah, Donald Trump told everybody, put a fence around everybody that might be rapists and murderers, and that way they won't steal your jewelry. I think Derek Fisher, he wasn't in Mexico when that happened, was he, Big C?
Well, Donald Trump already got robbed, so he can go out there and it was the Mexican family.
Yeah.
And rob Derek Fisher. I'm waiting in John Spicer to say that tomorrow.
Yeah, that's
was robbed a pride championship ring by some Mexicans. That's going to be an official announcement from the White House.
That's funny, Big C. We have so much going on in the world of sports. I just hope that people keep everything safe. And, one of my favorite things to talk about is sometimes it's the negative side of sports, too, because we all want to keep it real. But if you have that kind of jewelry, Coach Fisher, put it in a safe deposit box in a bank is usually a lot safer, Big C. Last thing I want to touch on, Big C, I want to mention that there's a lawsuit that targets the NCAA helmet maker, Riddell. Remember them back in the day? A lot of things are made by bikes right now for helmets, but Riddell was I guess there's a lawsuit brought against them because they did not do enough to keep players safe back in the day with the technology. Well, is it Riddell's fault that technology didn't keep players safe? Isn't it also coaching saying don't leave with the helmet, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Riddell just has to deliver a product.
Yeah.
That's like saying a player who got a broken leg is that his padding wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
Or a player that blew out his knee, but the knee pads weren't sufficient enough back in the day. But to blame Riddell for the coaching techniques that have been taught over generations, it's not their fault, Charles.
Yeah.
The brain was never meant to be put inside a football helmet.
Yeah.
It just wasn't, Charles. And as players outgrew their confines, we constantly, laminate on, that the field needs to be expanded.
Yeah.
To go in and sue Riddell, one of the leading makers of football equipment for years. Riddell made the helmets, they made the shoulder pads,
everything.
He had thigh pads, even made pants. They had Riddell shoes at one point.
Yeah.
Okay? Riddell had the greatest shoes because they were black and they had this little white strap that went around the ankle part.
Yeah.
And they were the coolest shoes out there, Jonathan. They had this thick leather sole on them. They didn't wear out. And they had steel steady cleats. And old timers know what I'm talking about.
You sound like you still got a pair of them, Big C. Is that what you know what they have?
These are some shoes, Jonathan. They remember. If you look at the first couple of Super Bowls,
Yeah.
that's what everybody wore with Riddell's, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Until Joe Namath broke out in the Pumas, everybody had Riddell's on. Bart Starr wore them in the first couple of Super Bowls, as well as Lynn Dawson and Dale Monica.
Wow.
So, this was a shoe of legacy. They also wore the Riddell helmet, Jonathan.
Yeah.
When you think about the grandfather of the NFL helmets was the Riddell as the NFL advanced. So if you think about suing Riddell, you got to remember all these early years of the NFL, and I think around 73, 74, a new helmet company called Magnum came out.
Yeah.
And it was a helmet company that had a movable pad in there where you could adjust the pads. They were leather pads, but you could adjust them all around in the skull of the helmet.
Yeah.
So, Riddell is still around today, Charles, one of the significant companies out there that did a helmet with the cut.
Yeah.
In the top of the dome of the helmet to alleviate pressure and shock from players.
Yeah.
So their technology, they've been keeping up with the curve, Jonathan, to stay in front of these things. But to go back and say this, you have to step back to the suspension helmet, Jonathan.
Yeah.
That we first wore when I started playing football. I had a canvas suspension dome inside the helmet.
Yeah.
And so you didn't have this padding all through, so the helmet never really touched the player's head. And you got to think about that suspension helmet, Jonathan. There were less concussions during that time than when you went to the fully padded helmet.
Yeah.
The helmet was always up against the player's, cranium.
Yeah. That's always something. You got to find a way to keep the players safe. But I know it's not what your uniform you're wearing or who makes it. And if they didn't know that it was safe or not, it's just technology. But I think the NFL is doing something right by their saying you can't lead with a helmet. College football does that. High school does it. You can't spear. That's something that was done back in the day, Big C. So I also think the way we teach our young athletes, and we got to make sure that we do a lot of that. I'm working with a foundation called Be a Champion Foundation. We're going to be spreading that across the country. And that's mostly for high school and college sports, so they can understand how to be safer and also understand the economics, Big C, that you always talk about of sports, Big C. Now, I know we're going to close in just a second, but I know we're all hyped up about Super Bowl weekend, but there's so many things going on in our country, whether it's political, whether it's societal, whether it's domestic violence. We got to do it away with that garbage. We got to do away with hatred and all that jazz. But as far as something that you're looking at, I know you don't just look at the score, Big C. What intrigues you the most about this game coming up on Super Bowl 51 in Texas? And I'll let you close with that, Big C.
Well, Jonathan, I'll tell you the most intriguing thing to me about this game will be the start of the game.
Yeah.
Former President Bush will be out doing the coin toss.
Yeah.
He's out of the hospital, he's in the white barber, and he's going to be able to make it to the game. That's how this game is about.
That's good news. That's good news.
Americana, that you get this former president that was ailing. This game means so much to him as well as the country that he's doing probably against what the doctors want him to do, is being out in this stadium. But, this is what football does when we talk about the galvanizing of a sport, to
yeah.
a country and a culture.
Yeah.
That's how important. You give up everything that should be of value to you to be a part of this significant, event.
Yeah.
And I want to give praise and congratulations to President Bush for being out of the hospital.
Oh, yeah.
And also making it to the Super Bowl, Jonathan. But, the mainstay of this event is about the athletes. And I hope both teams well. And I want to go out and see a great game.
Yeah.
But, we got the political rhetoric that people say, it can't cross in the sports. It's there, Jonathan.
It's already there.
And I wonder, after the game, what type of political stance will Fox take, or even during the broadcast, Jonathan, about the atmosphere in America?
Yeah.
It has to be brought up, Jonathan, because we have so many African Americans participating in the game. We have so many African Americans who can't get into the game, Jonathan.
Yeah.
But, you can't turn your back on what's going on in society, even with the greatest sporting event in the world.
Yeah.
It has to be brought to the forefront. And I think as sports reporters and broadcasters, we are obligated to the American citizen to make that point.
Well, Big C, I tell you, there's nothing wrong with freedom of speech. It makes our country great, but no one says it's going to always be easy. Now, as African-American men, I think we're uniquely qualified to talk about the pains of racism and hatred because we're oftentimes the recipient of it. But it doesn't stop us from flying. You use your higher self and your alchemy to be what you want to be and write down your goals. But it always takes other people to hold your hand. And that's why every single show that we're blessed to do, we're going to say no domestic violence. There's never any room for that garbage. No hatred, no bigotry. If somebody's doing it wrong, if you really care about them, call them out on it because you can help them correct it if they think that behavior is not good behavior. That's what the military does, Big C. And that's why I think Tom Brady dropped the ball. All you got to do is say, I'm anti-hatred, I'm anti-bigotry, I'm anti-sexism, I'm anti-people who are hateful for your religious beliefs. That's easy to say. You can be a human being and come up with that. If you can't do that, just at least pretend you're Dr. Martin Luther King, even for just 15 seconds, and say something decent. Big C, one more thing I want to have you say before we close this program. I know you love championship competition, and I know that these games are more important to you based on the strategy of these coaches, not as much the score. So one more thing, as a guy who's been a broadcaster, what are you going to pay attention to more so than just someone threw a 10-yard pass completion for a first down? Your thoughts?
We're talking about my main focus in this game is the defensive strategy.
Yeah.
Who gets off to that big play? That's going to set the tempo in the game. Can you maintain the momentum? This is a chess match. And if you look at the Super Bowls that New England have been in, Jonathan, in their history, the last 6 Super Bowls that they've been in,
yeah,
they have not been high-scoring affairs.
No.
Atlanta's a team that needs to score a lot of points to win.
Yeah.
Because they've been known to give up points, Jonathan.
Yeah.
So if they don't score a lot of points, that's going to be their Achilles heel. This is an offensive-minded team, yet they had the NFL sack leader in Vic Beasley.
Yeah.
But he hasn't faced an offense like New England, and nor has Atlanta faced a defense like New England.
Yeah.
So it's going to be quintessential that Atlanta can keep some momentum in this game, Jonathan, because if they stall at any point, we know what this New England offense can do.
Well, Big C, I knew you would talk about defense because that's going to be the key in this game. And as I always say, every Monday through Friday, at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time worldwide. Follow Charlton and Big C Sports on the iHeart Radio Network, the number one network in the United States, and also Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe. And I also want to say there's never any room for domestic violence. If you know any woman going through that garbage or someone grabbing her by the crotch, just call 911 because it's not a cool thing to do. And every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time worldwide, follow Big C Sports on the iHeart Radio Network. And as we always tell you, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.